The Dogs go back to back, folks. 12-0 regular season with a win against Georgia Tech Saturday. Listen, second installment of Sorry for Your Loss. We got an updated coaching carousel along with a lot more. Welcome to the DGD podcast. As always, Robert Reynolds, Kobe Pierce, Juan Daniels will be joining us shortly. But let's talk this. Let's go ahead and US. Listen, go over to dgdpodcast.com, click on the Bet US logo, sign up, and when you make a deposit, you get 125% sign up bonus. Make some money, folks. Start making some money. And the best way to do it is over there at your friends at BetUS. Uh, Kobe, interesting day, Saturday.
First Pat fact of the day comes in hot and heavy right out the gate. We can't even get through intros. Pat's ready to go today. Pat
Pat is
is letting
elite.
us
Pat's
know.
elite.
Here's Pat fact for everybody listening. Stetson Bennett finishes his career undefeated as a starter
At Sanford Stadium.
at Sanford Stadium.
That's a hard thing to do. That is a very hard thing to do. So thank you, Pat, for the first Pat fact of the day. Let's do this. Let's go ahead and jump into this. So obviously, 37-14 win over Georgia Tech. Right, we conquer the nerds, send them back to Atlanta where they belong, in their little nest, if you will. Started off a little bit slow and a little bit sloppy, though. Right, looked a little bit uninspired. That's just my key takeaway from the start of the game. And then obviously in the second quarter into the second half, you start to see Georgia just assert their will. But overall, what were your thoughts about the game Saturday, Cope?
Yeah, I think the big thing is, they played inspired. It was their Super Bowl. They're 5-6. They win. They get to go to a bowl. We beat them, and now they're going to be sitting at home. They're turning in shoulder pads today. Getting helmets sent off to be refurbished. All those fun things you do when you don't get to play in the postseason. I thought the big thing is that first touchdown. Honestly, both touchdowns we gave up, but especially the first one. You have them 4th and 4, 4th and 5, inside. Right at the 40. A little outside of field goal range, but kind of in that in between area, and they take a shot, and it hits. To me, it just as easily could have, been defended, anything you want to call it, but it hits and they score, and so you give up that 7 on a really good first drive. We're not really used to giving up touchdowns early in games like that, especially in the first quarter, but they really didn't do much after that first drive the rest of the game until we had our entire second team defense in the game for the second touchdown. And to me, what that tells me is Kirby's not worried about the stats or the standings. The fact that you saw an entire twos and parts of the threes defense go in late shows me that he thinks that they need reps more than we need to win and only give up 7 points, which is good to see late in the year. But I was impressed. We were a little sluggish. We had a couple key penalties that seemed just like to not go our way almost all day. And but we really turned on the second half, really asserted dominance. The O line ran the ball well, blocked well. I guess they didn't really actually run the ball, but they blocked well, and we ran the ball kind of when we wanted to. I think 8-9 yards a carry for the whole game. I mean, that's pretty impressive.
First off, awesome points. But first off, my first point, I swear to God, those refs must think that the varsity is the best restaurant on the planet because there were some dumbass fucking calls. Like it just made no sense. And typically, I'm not one to bash the officiating, but my God, was it inconsistent? I guess the only consistent thing was the inconsistency, if you will. Looking back on the stats, man, like both teams were penalized about the same in regards to the amount of penalties, but there was a lot of no calls. Just weird, like officiating, right? And it's been plaguing SEC at least, most of the season. Yeah, you look at hell. There was like the kid. I don't even know who it was. I forgot who it was, but kid jumps on the pile like body split, like just like jumps in and like he's jumping onto a fucking pile of snow. Well, after the play, it seemed like, and you don't call that. The problem is you do call the offensive face mask when you got a horse collar. You don't like it's just weird. The
Well, and I think sometimes and I don't know where, maybe, I can get, um, Pat to give me a fact, where Aaron Murray is gone calling some of these games, because Orlovsky and the boys, I did not enjoy on Saturday, and then to see Warren McClendon get a penalty for piling on, and then later in the game for them not to throw the exact same flag against Georgia Tech, and Orlovsky going, "Oh, well, it's different because he's only 190 pounds."
the issue to me is this.
Piling on's piling on.
Dude, you ready for this? You ready for this? One of the softest calls I've ever seen is the aiding the runner when Darnell literally pulled the running back, just pulled him 5 more yards. Why is that a penalty? Like you can push all day, but why can't you pull? If you're that strong, why do you get penalized for that? To me that makes no sense. Like,
Yeah,
do you like
I
what do
think it
you know
really
about it
I
that I
think it's
don't?
really meant to, like, limit people, they don't want anybody pulling people off of piles, they don't want people pulling, it's just one of those safety rules. Looking back at the Darnell penalty, it kinda is just like a big mush of a pile, and to say that, like, Darnell really pulled him that much, I mean, it was quite the call, to have made live, because even in the slow-mo replay, it was like, you couldn't really tell exactly when did he pull him and aid him that well. Just a different call for sure. And then the worst one, the pick on Lad McConkey was a terrible call. He didn't
Makes
even touch anybody. He just ran a route. He didn't even touch,
the,
and it was supposed to be a pick play. It was, but he missed the guy. Like, he missed the pick, and we still got called for it.
Well, you look at Rudes brings up another point. Who the fuck calls a pass interference on a stiff arm or the PI on the stiff arm, but not a horse collar? Like I said, ultimately there was a lot of inconsistencies here. Right, I think there's more to talk about than just the refs. I'll transition away from the refs. I think the refs, they heard enough. Like there was, it was wild here and how loud that place got with just booing the refs, and to me it was rightfully deserved. Like just overall, just a bad day for the refs, right?
Well, I
And
just think
even the replays, you call like that goal line, right? The red zone situation where we scored basically 3 times, and you want to award the touchdown to the most questionable one. I don't like Brock Bowers. If that's considered a catch to me, but that was arguably suspect catch there. But then Stetson Bennett crosses the line. It's just like, what are you doing? Like, what happened in your head to make you like just go off like that? It's bad. um, let's do this though. Let's transition over. Roots asked a good question here. Can we talk about how good the O line has been the second half of the season? The future is bright.
And
Um,
you know what I like about that, Rudes, is we have not gone away from rotating still, which I really thought by this point in the season we would have pounded out who we thought was our starting five and kind of rode with them a little bit more. But you really have seen Amarius Mims still comes and plays some right tackle for Warren McClendon. You still see Willett come in for Truss every once in a while. You still see Warren Erickson come in for Tate every once in a while. I mean, you're really still kind of playing that 7 to 8 offensive lineman scheme, and you're still not giving up a lot of pressures on the quarterback. You're still getting your run fits properly. You're still pounding the ball. That is what really makes the future look bright. The fact that you're doing that with multiple different lines.
Because I mean, that's a plus, right? Like we knew that the line was deep, right? We knew that there was a lot of like a log jam at the guard position, but when you have guys like Mims and Warren Erickson, things like that can come in and take care of business, right? Like if a guy needs a rest or whatever, but still keep that continuity together. right? Like it's a testament to how you coach things up. I feel like through the leading from the off season into the regular season, because obviously this well during spring camp you're testing pieces out, getting reps all over the place, right? And honestly, the fact that you have that cohesion regardless of who plays where, to me that's more impressive than whoever's playing. Like see often, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I think a big thing of it too is when you really start looking at um our starting 5 line. I mean, there's a good chance I would say you're going to lose both tackles, Broderick and Warren McClendon, to the draft.
I agree.
Well, luckily now, Amarius Mims will go into next season having seen live fire reps. He won't go into next season and game one be the first game he's ever
Even
played
Ernest Green, even
significant
Ernest Green.
minutes. Yeah,
Ernest Green's another name. Like you have Devin Willock that I think could come back, right? Like Cedric Van Prant.
I think Willock has plenty of
Yeah,
eligibility
no,
left.
I'm saying he'll be back. I mean, Cedric Van
Probably
Prant's
gone.
gone.
Probably
Cedric
gone.
Van Prant's gone. So I think
Probably gone.
as we look, I don't want to get too far ahead here, but you'll I'm sure you'll look for right who can fit in that because Cedric Van Prant has played his ass off at the center position through this regular season. Let's call it spade a spade. Without him, who knows what our offensive line could be? Because we saw it early, right, where he struggled at times, identifying Mike IDs, things like that. So small things, but obviously, overall, I feel like very confident that he's probably the best center in the country. It's just my thoughts there. Trying to
So
be as unbiased as possible.
so Roots comes in and asks who's going to take over for said Van Pran next year. I think that's a good question, actually. I think Warren Erickson right now is the backup, but I'm pretty sure he is
I think
in
his.
his
I think
last year of eligibility or
yeah.
very close to it. So you'd be down Van Pran and Erickson. So after that,
You can look at
Michael,
Fairchild.
yeah,
Fairchild might
I think
maybe.
Fairchild, and then I think hasn't Austin Blasky
Blasky's at multi-tool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I
so
think both of those guys.
I think that you're looking at both of those guys probably taking over for him, one of the two. It just depends. You're basically going to need to replace one tackle, one center, because you already have your replacement for the other tackle.
And the guards, I don't even necessarily feel worried about that unless we just get absolutely sacked through the fucking portal. That's about it.
Yeah, the question would be like, does Truss? Because I think Truss would have one more.
Truss
year
is
of
a senior, but I
eligibility.
think he might have that senior
I think he
year,
has
that
one
super
more.
senior year.
Yeah.
But no, so Pat says Nolan was on the sideline calling for Kenny Mack to score right before he did. See the future. I mean, like, that's something else too, right? Like, when this is a concern for me now that Pat brings up Nolan. Without Nolan Smith, and I'm not going to sit here and bash anybody, but there is a concern setting the edge on the outside to me. And I think we both know, Kobe, who we're talking about here. Yeah. But you've got to figure out a better game plan to address that. Whether, like,
I agree. We're no name calling because I don't want to get in trouble. But you definitely need someone to step up and to continue to step up at the OLB position.
You can't keep getting your shit pushed in. Like, what I mean by that is not setting the edge. Like, the inability to set the edge, if you saw, in this Georgia Tech game, they exploited that. They really did. And especially early, if you look back on it. Like, if Georgia Tech's doing that, I guarantee you. The thing is, though, just this upcoming Saturday, we've got a quarterback that can legitimately outrun most other quarterbacks in the country. Like, he is a designated runner playing quarterback. So you have to be able to contain and set the edge to not get him outside and feel comfortable to run the ball, right? Which is a game plan that I think Kirby and company is going to figure this out fairly well. And we'll talk about that in a little bit too, by the way. But overall, like setting the edge has got to be something that you have to do, and you have to figure it out now. It's got to get addressed in a hurry. Listen, you've got guys like Michael Williams that can go out and Marvin Jones Jr. out on the edge and pass rush like nobody else. But one of the things that this development comes into play is being able to set the edge if you're on the outside. Because I want to see Marvin Jones become a staple, whether it be, more than likely next season. I want to see him come into his own and be able to have a multitude of different skill sets, right? Where you can play three downs, you can sit there, you can pass rush on third down, but you still have the ability to set the edge, when you need to, right? I think if we can do that, and somebody steps up, like you said, that's going to make this defense even more scary. It just will.
I think Rudes has a good point that losing JD and Trayvon makes us go from, a mint front to a 3-4. And just that our defensive ends and OLBs need improvement. I just think that talking about all the people we lost, N'Kobe, all the linebackers, Jalen Carter has done a good job kind of taking over for the losing JD, and Nolan was doing a good enough job taking over for losing Trayvon, but then you lose Nolan and you really don't have that guy yet. I'm not saying he's not on the roster. I'm just saying that he's not that guy yet. And I think the hard thing too is, last year for a majority of the season, when the other OLB went down, got kicked off the team, Robert Beal stepped up. He had 6.5 sacks in the last 4.5 games. I mean, that's what we're talking about. He went from like 0 sacks to leading the team in less than 5 games, including the playoffs. I mean, that's what you're talking about when you say we need somebody to step up, somebody to contain the edge, affect the quarterback. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised, like I told you, to see Michael Williams get a little bit of time at OLB.
And it would honestly wouldn't surprise me, and it gets one of your best pass rushers on the field. Like Rude says that we thought outside linebacker would be a strength. Now it's our concern. Honestly, looking at it now, it's so crazy how that played out because we thought, going into the season, who's going to replace that D line because you lost basically everybody. You know what I mean? So now you're sitting here looking at your outside linebacker room, but I'm just going to let you know here, help is on the way. Help is on the way with the linebacker haul that we have in this 23 class. As we welcome in the GOAT himself, Juan Daniels.
What's going on? Go Dogs.
Oh. Anyways, Juan, as we were talking about here, Rudes had brought up a good point here, talking about outside linebacker, being a concern now when we thought it was going to be our strength. First off, welcome back in. Hope everybody have a happy Thanksgiving as well. That's not just to the guys here; that's everybody. Yeah. So Juan, let's do this. Let's backtrack a little bit. Thoughts on the Georgia Tech game? Juan, if I'm not mistaken, I thought I saw you take a snap. If I'm not mistaken.
No, I wish. I wish. For me, 2 words: injury free. That's the biggest thing for us to go 12-0, be injury free going into the SEC championship. I can't complain. I like where we're going. I like where we're at, and just kind of ready to move forward.
So you mentioned injuries, and there was a key one that I saw that we didn't see any statistics out of, but it's huge for me. A.D. Mitchell actually, even if he was a decoy for one play, dressed up, warm up, right, things like that, and going into the back where we are now, like this postseason, if you will, that's going to pay dividends. That's going to pay dividends. Michael B says, in regards to our outside linebacker talk, to say concern is relative. I suspect versus LSU would have more speed on the outside, meaning 11 for contain. I think for LSU and Mike, we're going to save this for Wednesday. But I know what you mean, and I think what we'll do is we'll talk how to kind of game plan against Jaden Daniels because he can get outside and hurt you. So we'll save that question for the next show. Bring that same question back though Wednesday, please do, because I want to make sure that's addressed. Wanta Claus is in full effect here in the brigade today. Won a natty for Christmas, Wanta Claus.
You got it. You got it. You can count on it.
Apparently, Pat says he heard Ric Flair's music in the background when Juan showed up. Goat things. Listen, we're not in South Carolina. Another something we're going to talk about in just a little bit too. Boy, oh boy, what a week in college football is all I'm going to say. The chat, sir. Who's your game ball going to?
Who was that to? Was that to me or Kobe?
It
No,
broke up a little bit.
I'm taking it to you. Sorry.
Right.
So game ball, Juan, who you got?
Oh man. Yeesh. I'm going to say I'm going to give it to that second and third string defense. For playing and showing up. Just like I was listening to it a little bit earlier, where Kobe didn't really care about the score and them giving up scores or whatever, but for them to come up there and show up just lets you know what's in the pipeline. And so I'm going to give it to Kobe. Sorry, to the defense and Kobe too. Yeah, you can have it, Swolders. But another thing I like too is I was out in Stanford this week, and one of the things that hurts Stanford is one of Georgia's strengths, and that is we don't have the ability to go out into the transfer portal. Well, guess what? Georgia didn't take anything from the transfer portal, basically saying we believe in everybody that's here. And that's what showed on Saturday is with that second, third string defense. I believe in you guys. We're going to stick with you guys, and that's it. So I love it. I absolutely love it.
Yeah, you know what though? That's an excellent point. I think you could honestly talk an entire episode on the transfer portal and really what Georgia did versus what other teams did and compare it. To me, it just shows that Georgia's on a different level right now.
Yeah, and the only reason you look at USC, the only reason why they have an opportunity to try to get into the college football playoff is they had 22 transfers. So what does that say to the guys that were already there? It's basically saying you guys are not good enough. We're going to bring in 22 transfers in order to make this program successful, only to get that fourth spot to play Georgia, to get absolutely cremated in that first playoff game. I can't wait.
Jumping in.
I'm not a Lincoln Riley fan either. If you thought I didn't like Ohio State and Clemson, I am not a Lincoln Riley fan.
All right, Kobe, who's your game ball going to? Give it to him.
Yeah, Pat said it in the chat. Kenny Mack, he is just secretly, slowly, however you want to call it, just having a really great year for Georgia this year. I mean, he doesn't get talked about like Chubb and Sony and Swift, and even last year was Zamir and Cook. But, he quietly has put up, I think, 1,000 yards.
He broke that mark
in for both between rushing and receiving. I think he has the most receiving yards by a running back ever in Georgia history. I just think that he is an instrumental part of the offense when we use him correctly. And sometimes when we're having trouble getting things going, we lean on him and he kind of pans out. And then for the defense, I'm with Juan. Like, not that I don't want to have the best scoring defense in the country, but at some point, who cares? You need to see Dalen Everett and all these guys that don't get to play that are going to have to replace Keely Ringo. They're going to have to replace people in our defense. They need live reps. It's just like we were talking about with the offensive line with Mims. You don't want this spring to be the first time you've played in a game since high school. It's just not good for you. But I'd say those are my two game balls.
Give me game balls. I'm taking game balls and give them to the seniors. Give them to the seniors, man. Senior day. Pat brought it up earlier.
Winningest class in Georgia history so far.
Yeah.
The class to look out for is the sophomores right now that will have been a part of 14-1 last year and 15-0 this year. They'll be off to a nice head start.
Good Lord, man. We're sitting here looking at it though, right? Like when you look at all these seniors, man, like Kenny McIntosh, if I'm not mistaken, is a senior. Obviously, Stetson, right? A bunch of these guys. The impact that these guys have had. Kearis Jackson's another one. Kearis Jackson came back when he could have left had he wanted to, but he said, I don't know if you saw the pregame video, but he came back for moments like this. And when you do the things that Georgia's done this year, right, going back to back undefeated seasons, regular season, right, that right there, that you're cementing a legacy for yourselves and for your team, you know, and I think that's important, right? When you hear what he said, because you've got Stetson coming back, and the Stetson's been ridiculed his entire time. Ever since he touched the field, people have ridiculed that man. Not just between Georgia, right? Not even Georgia fans. I'm talking nationally, right? That was expected, but like I said, it even stems down deep into the Georgia ties.
Roddy White on Saturday tweets during the game something bad about Stetson. I mean, it's just like, man can't get away from it.
My man, he can't get away from that, but I'll tell you what he can get away from: losing, because he ain't done it yet this season. My man is a winner, and I don't care what anyone, they cannot take that away from him. Can't take it away from him, right? So, like I said, my game ball is going to the seniors. Now, let's take a break, and then when we come back, second installment of Sorry for Your Loss. So stick around, and on the flip side, you're about to have some fun, folks. Stick around. Juan Daniels, the second installment of Sorry for Your Loss has commenced. I'm gonna let you take it away. I'm gonna let you. Who's your choice? Who's your choice? Who's your choice?
Ohio State has just been I can't stand Ohio State. I absolutely cannot stand them. I thought they were overrated a long time ago. And the fact that they got not just beat, but they got blown out at home by Michigan was absolutely amazing. Like when I tell you, like I had tears of joy in my, I actually went out and bought a freaking fiddle and just fiddled the whole time, just watching them just perish. I just
want to start shaking them jingle bells.
Man, I'm telling you, man, it was just outstanding. And then my other one too that I was just saying that was so overrated is Clemson. They're just they're horrible. And for South Carolina, and you let a South Carolina team that was just kind of mediocre, that Georgia just absolutely pummeled, and then they go and beat LSU the week before. Was it LSU that they beat the week before?
I think they beat Tennessee.
Oh, Tennessee. Yeah. Sorry. You go and beat Tennessee, and then you have them go up there and beat Clemson at home was even better. They were at home, right?
Snap the 40-game home win streak.
What a joy! And now with Georgia that owns the longest home win streak.
They're tied. They're tied.
I think we're tied.
I think.
Something okay. Like that. Oregon and Clemson both lost it this year because they were 1-2.
But Clemson and Ohio State, I've been just all year, and it finally came to pass. What just a beautiful, beautiful weekend of football.
Yeah. Oh man, Juan, are you done? Are you done?
I am.
Are you okay? You feel good about that? Okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna get a cigarette.
He just gonna smoke that pack there. Kobe, I'm gonna let you take it away next, sir. Who do you got?
I'm gonna touch on Juan's, and then I'll fade off a little bit too. But Clemson is my biggest sorry not sorry this weekend. I mean, you're at home, Death Valley. You're playing South Carolina. You're playing a team that didn't score an offensive touchdown against Florida less than a month ago, and they come in. You're winning at halftime. 40-game home winning streak on the line, and you get outscored 17-7 in the second half. Your quarterback throws for 99 yards on 8 completions, 29 attempts, averages 3.4 yards a completion, and it's just how this far along in what they call the Clemson dynasty do you have someone at the helm of your team like DJ, and how he hasn't flipped it, and how Dabo comes out and says, that loss isn't on him. Well, that's fine. I get defending your quarterback, but at some point, if Cade Klubnik is as good as he was, first, number one quarterback in the class, you have to make that move. I mean, you should have made that move, 6 weeks ago when we were telling him he should have made that move. And then my other team has got to be it's probably a tie. Ole Miss is going to be on up there for me. You start 7-0, undefeated in the top 10. People are talking about, you've watched Alabama lose to Tennessee. You're thinking this might be your year that you outscore Nick Saban. And then you go 1-4 your last 5 games to finish 8-4. Then all of a sudden you're telling me, oh, well, it's okay because Lane hasn't been focused because he's taken the Auburn job. Well, newsflash here, he's signed an extension at Ole Miss. He's there to stay. He lost those 4 games worrying about things other than football. And at some point, that's who you've just re-signed for another 6 or 7 years. And enjoy that, because I just don't see Ole Miss being anything more than a 9-win program while he's there.
Man, oh man. I'm touching back on Ohio State for a second before I give my choice here. Juan, what if I told you that two recruits, went on a visit to Ohio State, and one of them committed on the field to Michigan after the win? Because it happened.
Wow.
You can tell listen, if you're an Ohio State fan, oh, they didn't have an offer. You spent money for their visit, for them to come to your stadium, watch you get embarrassed, and then commit to your rival that just whipped your ass in your stadium right after the game. I don't care what you say, the optics of that is worth laughing at. That's all I'm going to say. I digress. Now, moving on. Brian Kelly, I got a bone to pick with you, sir. Got a bone to pick with you. I had hope in you, which is why I picked y'all to go second in the preseason, right? Right before the season started, I had y'all going second in the West. Y'all did me. You know what? You did me a solid. Y'all went first. Y'all made it to the SEC championship game. But by God, how do you lose to Jimbo and the damn Aggies, man? It's inexcusable, man. Now, you know what though? I'm pissed off, but I'm happy that you lost. You know why? Because you gave A&M a reason to keep Jimbo around, and that gives me a reason to just laugh at him even more. But you lose to A&M, and it wasn't like it was close. It was bad. That was a bad loss to a bad A&M team. And now you get to come to Atlanta and play the Dogs. Damn. Safe travels. That's all I'm going to say. Safe travels. Listen, you cannot lose to A&M. I wanted to whip a two-loss LSU's ass. Now we got to do it against 3. You took the SEC championship game and made it meaningless. Thank you for that. So I'm sorry for your loss. Sorry. Actually, I'm not. Just fuck it. That's why.
9 more years of Brian Kelly.
Just imagine that's Sweet Tea and I'm Kermit the Frog. Just saying. Anyways, guys, with all these not sorry for your loss situations here, the college football playoff scenarios kind of dwindling down, if you will. If you will, it's dwindling down. Now you're looking at a situation where Georgia should be number 1. However, there's folks in the national media that think Michigan should be number 1. Anyone want to pontificate a little bit on that argument for number one?
Well, Michigan played a trash Ohio State team who hasn't beaten anyone worth of note. Michigan hasn't played anybody worth of note, so it was basically a trash game, if we're being honest. And so, I'm looking at that like you should be thankful you're in the top four because again, you haven't played anybody. I don't think Michigan can beat Ole Miss. I don't think Michigan can beat Alabama. I don't think Michigan can beat Tennessee with a healthy Hendon Hooker. So you take Michigan and you run them through the SEC, they're going to have 3 or 4 losses easy. So for them to even think that they would even be considered number one is hilarious. But what was the spread was like what 53 for Georgia and 5 for Michigan. I think 5 first place votes for Michigan.
I think that's right. I think that's right.
Get out of here.
Kobe, you got anything, sir?
Yeah, I was trying to pull up some of my Pat stats. I guess at some point, Ohio State gave up a run, 85 yards. We all saw it for a touchdown. J.J. McCarthy at halftime, I think he completed like 5 passes for 185 yards and 3 touchdowns. He basically had thrown, not prayers, but I mean just right over the top of that team. I think the big thing, like Juan is saying about Michigan, is literally a week ago right now, the national media is telling you Ohio State wins or loses, they're probably okay as long as it's close. But they were telling you Michigan, if they lose, their strength of schedule is so terribly bad that there's probably no chance they get on in the playoff with a loss. But now they magically beat Ohio State, and you're telling me that they should go from like the 77th strength of schedule to the number 1 team in the country, all because they beat one team? Like, it's a collective of 12 games. That's why you play them. That's why you don't just play Ohio State versus Michigan and call it a season. I don't think that. Hold on, I have something planned.
I ain't gonna lie, I was jamming out a little bit. While you're doing that, breaking news, folks: Auburn has still not found their next head coach. Just want to let y'all know that.
Sorry, an ad was playing on ESPN.
Uh-oh.
Terrible.
So Pat fact, Kobe. Georgia has wins over 5 current AP top 10s. He includes LSU this weekend, so Pat's jumping ahead. It's a foregone conclusion to Pat. Just going to leave that there.
And I do agree with Pat right there that they did it without Corum, their best running back, their Heisman hopeful. But what did we all see last year when you show up and play a top dog and think, oh, we're going to run the ball to dominate this game? If you're bringing that to the playoffs with you, good luck.
So to that point, though, if you look at it, Michigan ran the ball for almost 300 yards, but they passed. I want to say 4 of their touchdowns came from over 40 yards out.
Yeah.
Like, that right there tells me that, and how can I explain this? When you thought going to the Big 12 to hire your defensive coordinator was the right move, that just shows me how much of a dummy you are.
They have basketball scores in the Big 12. I mean, that was just ridiculous. Real stupid.
What if I told you, though, if you look at Ohio State and you think that they got better, but their defense got worse because Michigan didn't do this like that last year. Even on the road.
Michigan struggled with Illinois.
Literally the week prior.
They scored 19 points against Illinois and then just go out there and just had a heyday against Ohio State. And it was crazy because you had a lot of analysts saying that the only team that's going to beat Georgia or probably most likely will win the national championship was Ohio State.
The funny thing is, if you slide into the 4th spot, you got a team that you're about to play that could honestly do what Michigan did to you, but better. Because that's their backup that did that, man. They didn't even have quorum. So you're telling me that your backup did Michigan's backup did that to you? Dear God, have mercy on the Ohio State Buckeyes if they got a hold of Kendall Milton, Kenny McIntosh, Dejon Edwards, Branson Robinson. It's like unleashing Bane, if you will, when you get Branson Robinson.
I mean, to be fair, like he did have the 85-yard touchdown, but he averaged 10 yards a carry. 10 yards a carry.
Yeah.
I think another thing though is this. You know, you can call it X's and O's or whatever, right? But what I saw before we move over to our poll is Michigan was just more physical than you. And that's a sign that the longer Ryan Day sticks around, the less physical Ohio State becomes. They've switched from power and physicality to finesse. And that's the wrong way to do it because Michigan has held your ass in check for 2 straight years because they were just more physical than you. They were just more physical than you. So if you want to, and a lot of fans wanted Georgia, and listen, I wanted that. I wanted to see that. I don't think we want to see that now because it might be TVMA.
I'm just while we're on like coaching carousel and different things. I mean, you have Ryan Day, who's born on third base, literally is handed an Ohio State team with every component to be unbelievable. They recruit really well. I mean, they get whatever receiver they want in the country. You know, to know that his only playoff victory came during the COVID year, and pretty much he's been dominated ever since by in games that really matter. I mean, yeah, they've been fine. I think they went 10-2 last year, 11-1 this year. They'll play in a Rose Bowl probably this year. Like, you know, that's high expectations to think that a Rose Bowl would be a down year. But at some point, you know, Jim Harbaugh has finally figured it out. It took him a long time at Michigan. He had to build it up. He had to figure out what worked for him. You know, he was losing some embarrassing games, but he's figured it out, and he's not going anywhere. He's not taking another job. He's happy at Michigan. He's going to keep doing what he's doing to you year in and year out. And if you're Ohio State and you think that you're going to go into Michigan next year and have more success, that's just not an easy place to play again.
Well, here's even what's funnier is last year, people don't realize Jim Harbaugh was on the hot seat. He was, even though they had a pretty good season and they were winning, they were like another loss to Ohio State. Man, they want him out of there. And then he dominated. And then, of course, now he gets another extension, and then he comes back again and dominates. He has an undefeated season, which I think will be great. I think that they will go, and I think they will crush TCU in that playoff, only to get stomped out again. But
it's
going to be a whole victory to make it to the game.
So, breaking news, guys. Texas A&M has fired Daryl Dickey. Daryl Dickey is Texas A&M's offensive coordinator. No longer.
I thought Jimbo called the plays at Texas A&M. Am I missing something here?
I don't know, but I don't know.
Who calls plays?
Ruse is saying Texas A&M crumbles. And listen, Texas A&M is in a hot situation right now because just over this weekend, even after the game, like literally Saturday and into Sunday, after that game against LSU, you had some key players hit the portal. Hayes Fawcett was a busy man this weekend.
A lot.
I want to read breaking news. Texas A&M promotes Jim Coley to acting OC.
Oh, my God. God. You talking about an ancient-ass offense with Jimbo calling the plays. Just wait till you get Coley. It'll be a Stegosaurus-looking-ass offense.
Single wing. And they don't even hike the ball. They roll it back, and then he just picks it up and takes it.
I can only say that because I was on the team in 19. We were there.
Key formation.
Woo! Yeah, it was rough.
I'll tell you what, before we transition to our poll, A&M, when y'all got that number 1 class, I told you congratulations, but I told you also now the hard part comes in keeping them. So far, it's not been guys from that class. Just wait. Just wait. Just wait. Transfer portal is about to get stupid.
December
Coaching
5th is going to be insane.
and God, it's going to be beyond ridiculous. And I really hate it for the kids like at lower level schools because the top tier schools aren't really going to get as impacted by that. The D2 schools, D3, whatever, that's where you're going to high school recruits.
Yeah, the
Really going to feel
2023
that.
class is going to be really, really tough for that 2023 class, especially with the early signing day is going to be, I think, December 12th, I believe. I think it's on that Monday. So with it being December 5th, it's going to be a full week of just absolute insanity. And then after that, if you're a 2023, especially quarterback, maybe some running backs, it's going to be tough sledding for you.
Rude's last question, then we got to jump to the poll. Rude's asking for a friend, however, can a university bounce a check? You might see that happen. You might see that happen. But anyways, moving on to the poll, right? After this week, the college football has settled. A lot of things were, answered this week, right? Rivalry week. It's always fun to see. And now you're looking at obviously heading into conference championships and things like that. The playoff picture at the top seems to be somewhat okay. So what we've got here, folks, is our top. We'll release the top four. Georgia number one, no question. I was about to say Ohio State, but they lost. Michigan at two. TCU. People have been wanting them to lose for weeks now. I know it's Iowa State, so please pump the brakes. But they just destroyed Iowa State. And that's what elite teams do. They're supposed to do that. So they take the 3 spot and that 4 spot. Could it be Ohio State one? No, give me USC. USC handled Notre Dame. That was a big time rivalry, big time matchup. And Caleb Williams sealed the Heisman, by the way, Saturday night. He sealed the deal for Heisman. Listen, people were talking about him sealing the deal if he does well against Utah this week. No, he sealed the deal this past Saturday. Just going to leave that there. So obviously the top 4, like I said, Georgia, Michigan, TCU, and not Ohio State. God damn, they're on my mind. I'm rip free. USC. Now the question is, who's going to fall into that 5 spot, folks? And with that being said, we'll pull up the poll here. Give us Ohio State at the 5 spot, right? 1-loss Ohio State should be over an Alabama team with 2 losses. Just going to leave that there. Both teams have their flaws, but I'm still taking a 1-loss team over a 2-loss team here. I think that would be an excellent matchup to see if Ohio State and Alabama were to play in a bowl game. I'd love to see that if everybody was fully healthy this year. But doesn't appear that's going to be the case. But rounding out the top 10, you have Alabama at 6, Penn State at 7. The Penn State, 2-loss Penn State team, their only 2 losses being Michigan and Ohio State. Penn State's playing some really decent ball right now. Tennessee at number 8, no Hendon Hooker, no problem. Dismantling, shutting out Vanderbilt. Number 9, give the UW the Huskies. The great value, go Dogs. And number 10, the Florida State Seminoles. Listen, I know the ACC championship's set right now, but Florida State's the best team in the ACC right now. Anybody want to disagree?
I think Florida State is playing the best ball in the ACC. I mean, we've all seen UNC play. We all know how bad they are, and we've seen Clemson. And when DJ is bad and Clemson is bad, they are really bad. He has games where they're tolerable and he plays well. They score well. They play good complementary defense. I mean, they have as many 5 stars on defense as any other team in the country. They should be able to play good defense, especially in the ACC. I think a lot of fans this week, we all read Twitter. A lot of people are saying, oh, well, 2-loss Tennessee should still be ahead of Alabama. Yeah, you've read it on Twitter. But in reality, that loss, the way you lost to South Carolina, I mean, you got to realize Alabama's lost 2 games by combined like 3 or 4 points.
Yeah.
You lost a game by 3 or 4 touchdowns. And that matters at some point. I don't care if you won the head to head or not.
And if you look at it though, right, Bama's losses were to what? You lost to LSU, right, on a 2-point conversion. And then you
where
lost to Tennessee on a last minute field goal.
Where you should have made your field goal.
Yes.
No, I mean, you just as easily you make that field goal, you win.
Yeah.
So
the bottom line is though, if USC loses or TCU loses, Alabama's going to be in.
I hope not, man. I get it.
You don't want it, but just like Kobe said, you look at those losses. They're barely losses against some pretty good teams. If you lined up Alabama versus anybody else, coming into that top 5, they beat them. I mean, that's just simply that. And you also already saw, Nick Saban politicking to see, if they can get in to that championship. But I'll tell you, TCU has to win, USC has to win to keep Alabama out because nobody really wants to see Alabama right now.
And I'll tell you right now, we'll talk. Georgia would want to see them. I think Georgia is okay with playing any team in the country. They want the smoke.
Yeah, I would. That my only issue right now with Georgia
is where you're playing.
Is the slow starts. We just gotta start better. Against like the Georgia Techs and the Kentuckys, we just need to start better. And I think that they would be hyped up for that game. And I just think, honestly, when you play bad competition, it's really hard to get motivated. And Kobe knows, when you play the teams that that you're, you kind of sleepwalk and you don't even want to be there. You just want to get it over
for younger teams.
So you can get hyped up for those big time football games.
Well, notice the difference last year too.
And it definitely has been one of those things where when you look at our schedule, you play a big game and then you play some lulls, and then you play a big game and then you play some lulls. I mean, we saw it. You play Oregon right out the gate, boom, we're firing on all cylinders. Next week you came out, you play Samford. It's like, 4:00 kickoff, Samford, whatever. You still win 33-0, but you kind of look that way. Well, you play this Tennessee team that people are telling you, oh, they're as good as 2019 LSU. And you beat them, and then you look like you have not cared one bit about playing Kentucky, who just lost to Vanderbilt before you played them. You look like you could have cared less that you were playing Kentucky. Yeah. And then Georgia Tech. Yeah, I mean, it was only 7-13 at halftime. Kirby
midway into the third quarter. It was like 6
Kirby's
minutes.
Giving the halftime thing to Lady. He's like, I think we've just had some penalties at bad times, and I've been happy with our physicality, and we'll be fine. And it's like, he ain't sweating it. If Kirby ain't sweating 13-7.5, that it doesn't matter. Like, not to say it doesn't matter, but he just knows that eventually it'll click. You had some bad things happen, and they'll be up for LSU. It's like I told you.
And Kirby's been there as a player. Like we've both played in games together where you're just kind of like, man, I just want to get, playing a New Mexico State. Who wants to really get hyped up and, playing for New Mexico State? So he's been there. So he knows. He absolutely
knows. Especially the more you dominate somebody like Georgia Tech right now. Like, they haven't beaten you since Kirby's first year, and it doesn't look like they're going to beat you anytime soon either. Like, at some point, it's just like, we got to play Georgia Tech again. Like, we kill them every year. It's different when you have a team like Oregon that you never get to play, or a team like Tennessee that everybody's chirping about. Georgia Tech just becomes another check off the schedule.
See, my thought is this, though, right? You look at what just happened to LSU. Tell me why Kirby's going to use that as motivation to say, hey, listen, we got to play with the fire under our ass the rest of the way, because you can't just sit here and think that you're better than somebody, because look at what just happened to your opponent this upcoming Saturday.
Yep.
This probably more than anybody else here by far. I guarantee you Kirby's going to use that this week a lot.
Yeah, because there's no way you can tell me that LSU was not looking towards that SEC championship. I mean, they, and then you've got a Texas A&M team And I told you guys, I mean, they didn't have anything to lose. I mean, they really didn't. I mean, you got a bad coaching situation, you've got bad plays and all that, and they had nothing to lose. So, why not try to go out on top?
LSU ran into the trap game to end all trap games at night, senior night, the worst team in the West. Actually, a very full stadium. I mean, I bet they had 90,000 people when they showed it on TV. It looking ahead to the number one team in the country with a first-year head coach who doesn't have that culture instilled yet. Like, the thing that Kirby has is the culture that just kind of trickles down to where, yeah, you may not care about Georgia Tech, but you're not going to overlook them to the point where you turn around and you're down by 21. You may overlook them and be struggling offensively a little bit, but it was bad. It was a bad look for LSU to lose that game, and you worry the wheels maybe could be coming off.
With that being said, we're going to finish out. We're going to go from 11 to 25, and then we'll discuss a little bit here as well if need be. Starting at 11, you're looking at Utah coming off of a nice win. Kansas State at number 12. After taking losses this week, Clemson at 13 and LSU at 14. 15, you're looking at Oregon State. 16, Oregon. 17, UCLA. 18, Tulane. 19, Notre Dame. 20, those Gamecocks with Beamer ball. 21, UCF. 22, Texas. 23, UTSA. 24, those Trojans down in Troy, Alabama. And rounding out the top 25, give me the Blue Devils, man. Give me the Duke Blue Devils. Shout out to Mike Elko. Here's a Rob fact here, a Ren fact, if you will. Mike Elko was the DC last year at Texas A&M under Jimbo Fisher, and in year one has taken a horrible Duke football program and won more wins than Jimbo Fisher this year, 8-4. Man, it sucks to suck, don't it, Jimbo? Damn. But anyway, once you get out of the top 10, guys, to me, there's so much parity in a bad way. Like, no team really sticks out to me like that's playing like excellent football. Like, Oregon lost to Oregon State, right? They blew a huge lead, and blew that. Now, there's speculation that Dillingham, now the head coach at Arizona State, made the call for to go on that 4th and 1. I don't know, but it just felt eerily weird how they gave up that much. But that's on Oregon ultimately.
That's first-year head coach at some point too. I mean, I hate to say that. Like, you got to learn to tell your offensive coordinator, no, this is what we're doing.
I think, and listen, we know Dan Lenning's a super smart guy. So he's licking his wounds right now, but I'm telling you, I think he'll be fine. I guarantee you, as he gains experience as a head coach, he'll probably, when he gets that kind of lead, regardless of who it is, he's going to establish a run game because Jordan James actually looked pretty damn good against that Oregon State defense for what it's worth. Anything that sticks out to y'all out of that top 25 from 11 to 25? I'll pull it back up.
The one that sticks out to me the most, they're not on there, but who is it? Troy. Troy has to play Coastal Carolina this week in the Sun Belt Championship game. And Coastal Carolina is the second best team in their subdivision of the Sun Belt. They just got destroyed by James Madison, like 44-7. But James Madison, because it's their first year of being Division I, are not eligible for postseason play. So Coastal is going to get to play in the Sun Belt Championship after James Madison just beat them by 35. I just think that
shout out to James Madison. Shout out to James Madison. Hey, former I'm just saying, Alonzo Barnett, former Worley.
That was just a big thing I saw this week. That, I mean, it should be Troy versus James Madison in their first year of existence. I don't know why you punish a team for their first year playing up a division.
Yeah. You know what, though? We're going to wrap this up, but before we do, I want to give a shout out. Friday night, I saw one of the best high school football games I've seen in a very, very, very long time. Grimsley and Huff in the 4A, I think fourth round, if I'm not mistaken. Triple overtime. Triple overtime, folks. Grimsley pulls off a 4th and 1 foot stop. 4th and goal from the 1 foot line. And none other than Jamal Jarrett is in on the tackle to stop them to win it in triple overtime. Shout out to the Whirlies. They're taking on Weddington, and I'm just saying, that was a game, guys. That was a
For state championship now.
no. So where it stands now, they play the regional. So if they win this Friday, they will go to state for the 4A title.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
that was a big game.
Okay. So we're in Final Four then.
Yeah, now they're in the Final Four. So the importance of that game. So for any, obviously y'all are down in Georgia, the importance of that game. Huff and Grimsley, in my opinion, are two, if not the two best schools that play high school football here in the state, in North Carolina. They are excellent. And so to see that game go into triple overtime and then the way it finished out was beyond insane. So Huff has Tad Hudson, UNC quarterback commit. They have Nathan Hauser, which is, I think he's already like a state leader in points or the school leader in points. Or I forgot, he's holding a stat as the leading scorer. He's a junior. He just got a full ride to Clemson as a junior. Well, he hasn't committed, but like Huff has got some dudes on that team. So that was a slugfest. That was a huge fight Friday night, which was a big game. So shout out, honestly, shout out to both teams because that game was worth the watch, man. That was really worth the watch. But on that note, though, guys, let's wrap this thing up and let's turn our attention Wednesday to the SEC championship game because we got some Tigers. We got some receipts from 2019. We want to return. So get ready for that. With that being said, Brigade obviously coming in hot and heavy. Shout out to the Brigade today. And with that being said, let's wrap this thing up for today. And feels good. Feels good to be 12-0, don't it? Feels good to be 12-0. All
right. Enjoy it.
All right, guys. We will catch y'all later. Hey, DGDpodcast.com. Like, follow, subscribe on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook. If you're watching or if you're listening, make sure to leave us a review. Let us know what you think. With that being said, have a great day. Go Dogs, and we'll catch y'all next time.
Go Dogs.